Here's what's coming today on the Woodworking Network podcast.
There's still so much room in this world for innovation. There's still so much room. I used to think that every machine was already built and there's no way. And now every time I turn around, I see something else that needs to be built.
Welcome to the fourth season of the Woodworking Network podcast and a new episode. Join us as we explore the business of woodworking, big and small, and what it takes to succeed. I'm Will Sampson. Today's episode is sponsored by the Executive Briefing Conference. Today our guest is Brad Cairns from Quantum Lean and Best Damn Doors, wearing a new hat as a developer of a new line of machines. But before I get to that, I want to talk about igniting the spark of invention. Inventors and inventions fascinate me. As long as I can remember, even as a little kid, I was captivated by stories of inventions and the people who create them. How did they think up those things? What is different about the way prolific inventors like Edison, Tesla, Franklin, or Bell solved problems? Is it something that can be learned, or is it just the unique makeup of these people? I don't know the answer to those questions, which of course leads to more fascination with the people who have that inventor gene, if there is such a thing. But I love crossing paths with inventors and exploring their ideas. Throughout my career in woodworking, I've met dozens of people who came up with clever inventions to solve woodworking problems. I've written about many of those inventions and the people behind them, but I still don't have a clear understanding of what makes these people different. Even so, I do know that there seems to be more than the usual share of inventor types in the woodworking community. Every shop I visit has features or ways of doing things that they developed on their own. Sometimes these innovations are truly unique, and other times they are a lot of reinventing wheels that other shops have done too. Heck, I do the same thing all the time in my shop, making simple jigs and fixtures to make a process faster, easier, safer, or more accurate. Those are what I call little inventions. Bigger inventions are something else. A bigger invention is something like a whole new machine or breakthrough product or new marketable tool. This is a different level of inventive visualization and vision. It requires seeing a solution and all the contributing parts and assemblies as one full piece all at once. They say necessity is the mother of invention, but it takes more than need to spark a completed innovation. Decades ago, when I was building stringed musical instruments, I needed a large resaw bandsaw, and it just wasn't in the budget. But I was just young and foolish and clever enough to think I could build such a bandsaw myself. And I did. I called it Frankenstein. It weighs in excess of 300 pounds, cobbled together from scrap steel, scrap cast iron, and off-the-shelf bearings and hardware. It's a miracle that it works, but it does, and it's still cutting wood in my shop today. Even more amazing are the inventions designed from the onset to be sold. I tried my hand at that too, but not very successfully. Maybe that's the whole secret of the fascination. It's like going into a restaurant, smelling the aroma in the air, and knowing the chef will cook up something great, but you have only an inkling of the ingredients. Still, I live for that meal. I want to get to our interview with Brad Cairns, but first let's pause for a word from our sponsor. It's really easy for woodworkers to stay stuck inside, focused on their shops and production. But over the last couple of years, the pandemic has forced them to be even more isolated than usual. And it's even harder if what you want is to network with top-level executives in the industry. Where and how can you do that? The answer is the Executive Briefing Conference coming this September at the spectacular Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. This is an unparalleled opportunity to boost your business with intelligence on techniques, tools, and technology, and to feed on inspiration from real leaders in the industry, not to mention take in all the high-altitude hospitality, beauty, and recreation offered by the Broadmoor. Learn more at executivebriefingconference.com. See you there. Now let's get to our interview with Brad Cairns.
Hello, we are live again at Wood Pro Expo in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I am pleased to have as my guest, once again, Brad Cairns.
Hi, Will.
And Brad is wearing a different hat at this show, which is one of many that he wears. You know him mostly from his lean exploits at Quantum Lean, and also his shop, Best Damn Drawers. But he's gone, doors, excuse me. Best Damn Doors. But he has gone into some of the machinery business lately. First with a clever robot that we talked about once before, but we'll talk about again. And then you have a fiendishly clever new machine there at the show too that I mistook as an edge bander when I first came in. What is that, Brad?
Oh, that is our newest brainchild. We kind of reinvented the way edge sanding is being done, mostly because what was out there is a lot of flap sanders, a lot of belt sanders, and I couldn't get out of my head. I'm like, well, if that was the answer, we'd all be using handheld flap sanders, but we're all using handheld palm sanders. So the answer must lie where the question is, and that is the palm sander. So we developed a machine that actually has 5 independent palm sanders built in, and so you get perfect grip progression, held at a perfect 90-degree angle, and everyone that's run it today, we asked them to rate it between 1 and 10, and we haven't got anything less than 9.8, so we're feeling good about it.
That's great, and I saw what it does, and then, it's basically you take a panel that's got sharp raw edges, and you run it through just like running through on an edge bander, but you get finished sanded edges that are really nice to the touch and like a nicely hand sanded edge. That's really cool.
Ready to paint. Thanks for the plug.
yeah. That's great. So how did this come about? It was just
Well, I mean, it actually started before I knew it started. Many years ago, I'm hanging out with Paul Akers, and we're out in the desert riding dirt bikes, and he says to me, lean is the ultimate mother of invention. And at the time, it didn't register until we started building machinery, and now I know exactly what he's talking about, because as soon as you look at things with a lean mindset, you start to solve those little problems, and all of those little sayings, like the question should be where the answer is, no guessing, no assuming, all of these things are so simple, yet listen, our machines, we're building these principles into them, and we're coming out with things that don't exist anymore. So, or not anymore, have not existed before. So I think that it was just when the penny dropped, it was really cool to be like, that's what he meant. Like there's still so much room in this world for innovation. There's still so much room. I used to think that every machine was already built and there's no way. And now every time I turn around, I see something else that needs to be built.
Well, it's you're thinking about a machinery solution in a different way, probably, than most of the machinery technologists and designers are thinking.
Yeah, I think coming from a woodworker first and then to build a machine is actually easier than trying to teach a machine builder 30 years of sanding knowledge.
That's a good point.
We don't have 30 years to teach them, so it was easier for me to just build my own machine.
Well, it's a very cool machine, and I have never seen anything like it. So I will grant you the originality of the thing.
Thank you.
And it seems to work, so I'm not going to complain. But now, let's go back to your first machine. Now it's a little robot sander. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that one was, again, that came, just out of necessity from the door company. So we had 12 people sanding primer at the time, and I'm like, this just has to end. We can't ask human beings to be on the end of palm sanders any longer. And so we set out looking for a solution. And again, we just couldn't find what we needed out there. And so we just set out. We knew we wanted it to be robotic, and we just set out to build our own. It took us about...
What was missing from the robots already in the industry that, I see lots of people claim to have robots that do sanding. What was missing?
Mine works.
Yours works. Okay.
Everybody's doing their own thing. I don't want to say that one thing is better than another. Let's just say we couldn't find a solution that we were happy with.
Well, what I'm getting at is what were the areas that disappointed you that you couldn't address? Was there a kind of sanding or something that you were getting?
Understand? Yeah. Number one, sand throughs.
Okay, so they were
every
sanding through the
sander
primer.
burns through on the edges of every panel and every sanding machine, except for ours. And that's what took us. Like, it took us 6 months to build a robot and 2 years to figure out how to not sand through. And so, now even at the show right here, we've got primed doors. They've just been primed, not sanded and primed again or whatever, and we're not sanding through at all. And so that for me was the tipping point when I realized that we have something that the rest of the market could benefit from. We can help other people with this machine, instead of just having some for ourselves.
Now your robot, if I recall from seeing videos and all, is you've got like a palm sander kind of attachment for doing the outside of the doors and the stiles and rails, and then like on a shaker door it has like a square unit that comes in.
It does.
So it can reach the corners.
So it gets in the corners, exactly. And just on our new 2023 model, we added another 2-inch orbital sander that runs around and breaks the corners. So now we sand the edge, break the corner, sand the face, sand the inside. It's getting pretty good.
Wow. And it changes between those tools by itself?
Seamlessly. They're all mounted on the head, so it just flips around and does what it needs to do.
That's great. And how long does it take to sand a door with, say an average door?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question depending on your chemicals and what you're trying to sand and everything.
Right.
If you're sanding a raw MDF door, you're under a minute. If you're sanding a full prime door and you want to sand the whole thing, edges and let the machine do everything it can do, it might be 3 minutes. So it's, no matter how you stack it up, it's still a little bit quicker than asking someone to do it.
And what's your staffing and supervision of the robot unit?
Just one operator.
Just one operator.
Yeah. So the idea is, and the hard part to explain is, when people are buying equipment, usually the person selling the equipment is just looking at the bookends of the start of their machine and the end of their machine, and that's that. When we're developing equipment, we're actually dipping into the lean side of things, and we're looking at the whole value stream. So it's not a sanding solution that is just run it through a machine. It's from the time the door arrives to your finishing room till the time it can get painted again. That's the actual value stream. And so we're also analyzing the hand sanding component. And so while you're hand sanding, the reason that this robot is, for us, the answer for us is, while you're hand sanding, the robot is palm sanding. So instead of a big feed through machine where you're going to be forced into batch manufacturing, you're going to have to do all that hand sanding, let it all pile up, then run over to the rocket machine and feed it all through. Well, we're doing the hand sanding, but the palm sanding is happening while we're doing the hand sanding. So there's actually a time savings there over the rocket ship feed through. Unless you have like 20 people hand sanding, then you need the big monster whatever. So
well, and then you've got an increased opportunity value of what people can do while these machines are doing this other work for you.
Yeah. So it's really designed to work with the operator in a single piece flow fashion. And I get asked a lot, like, well, what about this and what about that? I said, listen, if there was already an answer out there, I would have bought it. We didn't set out to do this. We were trying to solve a real problem. And it shows. Like we hit a pain point, which is cool.
And you aren't one of these guys that has to have a shop-built solution to everything. If you can buy it off the shelf, you buy it off the shelf.
Yes, we only set out to solve our own little problems at Best Damn Doors, and then what's the saying? Every squirrel finds a nut. So we got lucky. I'm not going to claim to be the best engineer in the world. So hey, there's an element of luck, and we did it, and we're proud of it. So yeah.
That's really neat. And what's the name of the new company that's selling the machinery?
That's Stolbeck Machines.
Stolbeck Machines.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Or should I ask?
No, it's fine. Two-part answer, super simple. We wanted it to have a European flavor. So when you say Stolbeck, it kind of gives it that like a German flavor because everyone says German machines are good. So we wanted them to assume that.
You're Canadian.
Right? And then Stolz means proud, and Beck is my son Beckett.
Oh,
So I was proud
that's
of Beckett,
great.
so we got Stolbeck. So yeah.
That's neat. That's neat. And I gather we're installing one of these recently in Vancouver. And
Yeah. We just finished installing one in Vancouver. That was the videos on YouTube, so it's pretty cool. We try and document that stuff so people can kind of really get their head around what's involved and understand what they're getting into.
well, I really think it's fascinating to look at the concept of designing machinery from a lean perspective. I mean, I actually know a lean guy out in Washington State who is sort of anti-automation, and he has a 7-man cabinet shop and conventional equipment, and he's got it going really smooth and efficiently for his standards with a hardcore lean approach. So much so that when there was actually another cabinet shop in his industrial park that was competing with him, and not really competing with him, but the guy was trying to actually take over his space in the industrial park.
He was trying to kill him.
Yeah, well, he was friends with the landlord, and so this guy, the lean guy, he went next door and taught the guy lean so that he knew he didn't need that extra space.
I love it. I love it. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's great. Well, I think this is really exciting that you're getting into new areas, but it's still all connected to that lean thing. Not to turn a negative here, but we just did a benchmark survey that was a little startling in a number of areas, and one of those was the reception for lean. As you and I know, I've been involved in this since the 1980s, and this is not new stuff, and so it hurts me when I hear people talking about it as if it's some newfangled idea that they're not even willing to try. And we had some, with less than half of the people were even trying lean, and there were very few that said they tried it and it didn't do anything for them, but there were folks that were not exactly positive on the lean front.
What do you do? In one hand, I'm kind of thankful, right? If you're running a business and you hear a statistic like, hey, half of your competitors are not willing to improve, I get pretty excited about that. I'm like, sweet. So as you look at things as an industry whole, and you're like, hey, we want the industry to be better, and everybody should be lean. But truly, you look at that as, zoom in a little bit to the individuals and say, hey, you don't have to be the next Paul Akers or Michael Althoff from Yellow Tools. If you got 20% better by putting in a good Kanban system and implementing some standards, that's 20% that your competition's not doing. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It seems easy. It's not easy, but it's because we're not forced to do it.
Well, and the way I approach it is, why would you not want to do continuous improvement?
Right.
Are you wanting to be the same static situation? And I suppose there are some folks that.
Yeah, BlackBerry.
BlackBerry.
Where are they?
There you go.
Yeah, so don't be like BlackBerry.
Yeah. But I still think it's exciting, the things that can be accomplished with a lean mindset, and I think this whole thing of developing new machinery based on solving a problem from a lean continuous improvement perspective is a neat thing all by itself.
Yeah, and we're, I have to tread lightly because I have, on one morning I wake up and I put on my quantum lean hat and I have to go to a shop and I have to teach them how to do more with less, because our mantra is, we don't want to spend money. Like when we get there, let's do more with what you have before we start throwing money at it.
Right.
And on the other hand, I have machines that solve some pretty good problems for people. So, but even selling machines, I want that customer to get the right thing at the right time. And so there will be a point where you need to automate. But if that's not now, and you can read a book and improve your business, do that.
Yeah.
It's not, maybe you're afraid like it's overcomplicated or whatever. It's not. Just think of, I don't have one on today. Have you seen our orange t-shirts? We're wearing orange t-shirts in all our videos. We just got lean sayings put on all of our t-shirts. We have like 20 lean sayings. We actually sell these t-shirts because we're trying to get the message, like, it's not that hard. Like, no guessing, no assuming. Do you know how far that sentence can take you in a business? Improve your communication. No guessing, no assuming. Don't go cut something unless you're 100% sure it's right. No guessing, no assuming. Like, just those little mistakes coming off your list because of one thing, because maybe you looked across the room and the guy had a t-shirt on that
There was a guy walking around this show earlier, I haven't talked to him, who had a t-shirt on that said, "Measure once, cut once."
He leaned it out, I guess. But we just don't want people to be afraid of it as it's like this monster in the closet and it's going to be hard and complicated. It's like bending a tree. If you walk up to it on day one and give it a push, nothing's going to happen. But if you lean on that thing for years, eventually it's going to start growing in that direction. And I think if you can just get past the instant gratification and you watch videos, and of course, who posts videos? The guys that are really good at it, right? Seating matters, yellow tools, fast cap. And then in a week, your shop doesn't look like that. And you're like, this sucks, I can't believe. They've been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
They go to the gym once and be like, why don't I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, not happening. So don't be so hard on yourself. Just keep constant pressure.
Yeah, just make incremental steps.
Every day. Just
do what
just
you
a
can.
Little bit.
Yeah. Well, I always, we've mentioned Paul Akers. For folks in the audience that aren't familiar, Paul Akers has a company called Fast Cap in Bellingham, Washington, and has been a crazy lean advocate for many years, and is the author of 2 Second Lean, which is a highly recommended book for getting involved in lean that gets away with, throws out a lot of the off-putting language that some folks don't really cotton to. And he's a great resource. And Brad here is a great resource.
Oh.
But I think a lot of this time, this just takes somebody who has a vision for improvement. And lots of times you can't see that yourself. In previous podcasts that we were doing here, gentleman was talking about his employees making improvements that he didn't even know about, and he comes out to help out or do something, and he's doing it wrong. We don't do it that way anymore.
That's the holy grail right there. When you can leave and come back and it's a little bit better than when you left, you're on the right track.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you coming over here, and it's always fun talking with you. And I hope you have a great show here and get a lot of leads for your new machinery.
Yeah, it's been great. We've been 5 people deep, and they all have their phone out taking videos, and it's interesting to get people's stories. The lady, when we were setting up the booth, funny story, she was cleaning up, like doing the vacuuming and everything. She comes over and she saw me setting it up, and she's like, oh my God. She pulls out her phone. She goes, I used to work at a cabinet shop sanding doors day after day after day. Boy, I wish I had one of these. It's like, sorry, a little late.
That's great.
Are we done already? That was exciting. Is that it?
I think that's it for today.
Okay.
And
thanks for having
I'm sure
me.
we'll have you back on the broadcast in the future.
All right.
And keep us posted on the success of your machinery enterprise.
Oh, will do. Thanks for having me out.
Thanks, Brad.
Pleasure, as always.
That's it for today. If you're looking for more of our podcasts, you can find all of them at woodworkingnetwork.com/podcasts and in popular podcast channels. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks again to today's sponsor, the Executive Briefing Conference. And if you have a comment or a topic you'd like us to explore, contact me at will.sampson@woodworkingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening.